to another episode of Cyber Queens. We are, of course, your hosts, Meryl and Erica. I'm Meryl, resident ethical hacker and offensive security expert.
I'm Erica Eakins, a recovering sales rep and now CEO.
Sales rep in recovery, twitches traumatically. And we are so excited because we are joined today by someone we've wanted to have on the show for a long, long time. We've seriously discussed it. I don't even know how many times. Eric and I have been like, we need to have her on like 1,000%. And we finally do. We are finally joined by our longtime friend and big fan, Ray Tierney. Ray, welcome to the Cyber Queens.
Thank you. Really
Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
So I'm Ray Tierney. I'm transgender. I've only been in transition for about 3 years. This time around, I did have a point where society and family caused me to detransition at one point back in like 1999. But I'm an Air Force veteran. I was a paramedic for 18 years in
Air Force.
And yes, I've got a daughter currently serving in the Air Force, and
awesome.
I had a kind of a career-ending injury as a paramedic on my cervical spine. I'm 2 surgeries in, and not looking forward to what they've found to need a third. So that is I'm like, hey, you got to wait till I get to a point in my gym activities to have where I'm like willing to have time off. So but yeah, that's how I got into cyber. I started taking network admin courses. I took a Security Plus class, and I really loved it. And I liked the aspect of I was in security forces in the Air Force, so a lot of the terminology in cyber, defense in depth, and I almost make mental equivalents of IDS systems. It's like I make almost like a battlefield mental correlation between the roles and the depth of cybersecurity. So I really got into it, and I've always loved that stuff. I had wanted to go into law enforcement. Now I look at it and I'm like, I don't want to do all that paperwork, but that was why I joined that's why I went in the Air Force. I was going to go to school for law enforcement, criminal justice, and I had a great interest. My dad was a New Jersey state cop, and I grew up wanting to be a cop, to be like him. And I went in security forces and didn't realize that at that point I was going into the Air Force's quote unquote Boy Scout infantry. Most Army and Marines will be like, yeah, okay, but yeah, it's been quite a journey, and I've been exposed to 30 plus years of knowing that I was transgender, and exposed to different policies and different people that really caused me to make certain life decisions, and some were not beneficial to my existence.
Not in your best interest, right? But kind of in their best interests.
Yeah.
So we do want to open up this episode by saying, by the way, happy Pride to all those LGBTQIA plus members out there, of which I'm one. Rock on. So just wanted to say, obviously the topic for today is centered around Pride topics and stuff like that. But Ray, so I really quickly, I wanted to ask you, have you had your first role in cyber yet since making the transition into cybersecurity?
No, I haven't. My primary role right now that I actually love is doing research for Overt Operator and their website, and a lot of that's cyber related, malware, reporting on malware, current I mean, that's, if you look at my articles, that's like my favorite topic is, malware analysis. I love APTs. I don't love them, but
we all hate them, but I mean, their work is kind of fun to analyze.
I like researching APTs. I'm a MITRE nerd. I love MITRE.
Hold on. Wait, Ray. We forgot to tell you, if you use an acronym, you have to explain what it is after.
You have to say what the acronym is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Advanced persistent threats.
I mean, we know, but for our audience, we have to. Yeah.
Okay.
For the not yet in cyber portions of the audience.
Yeah, I mean, up until 4 years ago, I didn't know half of this stuff. But so really, it's I was always interested in cybersecurity, though. Let me just say that. And I remember going to, the new generation of cyber and my iteration of this learning experience. I mean, it's leaps and bounds away from what it used to be. You used to go to like Borders Cafe or Barnes and Noble. You couldn't find anything on tech or cyber. All you could find, maybe this. You'd find 2600, okay? And then you'd go on IRC or message boards and people tell you how to collect calls, free. And so that's all you could find. And at the time, Kevin Mitnick was the big thing. Kevin Mitnick,
right?
YouTube.
I met
him.
I
couldn't follow his exploits on YouTube. There was no YouTube. It's like, I just watch the news, and so, I mean, that aspect transfers over to what I do. With Overt Operator, it's like, hey, I just scour everywhere trying to find these stories and then report on, hey, this is this malware and this is what it does and this is who's using it. But, the advanced persistent threats are just like my thing. And it's usually,
obviously bad for the environment, bad for the world, but so sexy to research, right? Like so much fun to delve into what they do.
Using, you've got North Korea using their Lazarus group, committing financial crimes to, propagate their income. You've got, Russia, the hackers in Russia just operate, that they use plausible deniability to deny the hackers are even doing anything he's just a cyber criminal. We're not, that we didn't authorize him to hack into your networks or anything.
We don't claim all of our bad children, but good job.
Yeah, him and his buddies drive around in sports cars around Moscow, past police, doing donuts, and it's all on YouTube. They own pet tigers and post videos of themselves, doing crazy things. So it's like, okay, the rest of the world isn't stupid, but so that aspect of everything had really got me into cybersecurity. And then MITRE Foundation and their attack platform and how they break things into it's basically like a threat matrix that can be broken down into tactics, techniques, and procedures that hackers, threat actors, and advanced persistent threats utilize. And by finding those in how those are threatening your system, whether it's enterprise, industrial, whatever, you can find ways to mitigate those threats by finding choke points where commonalities merge. And if you take on that choke point, you can mitigate 4 or 5 factors that are threats to your organization. So I find that really cool.
Oh, I'm a big MITRE proponent. In fact, what you were saying about the military, like every time I give a presentation to people, I say I'm going to be using a lot of military terms, and like, so if you're unfamiliar with any of these, please let me know and stop me, and I'll explain them to you. But yeah, I tie pretty much everything I do to MITRE. I'm like, if you're not doing that at this point, and if you in the business departments are not interested in like how we talk about MITRE at this point, like I still have people who are like, I don't get what MITRE is. I'm like, I don't know how it's possible at this point, but you really need to start using it in your work. Like, I think even Erica knows what it is.
I absolutely know what it is, because I have, as a salesperson, I have to know all of this because my customers know all this. Well, a good salesperson does that, but
Yeah, correct. A good
I'm also
salesperson.
technical. I'm also a technical salesperson. So,
Erica is a tech. Thank you. God, how many episodes did it take me? 26 to get you to admit that? God, that was a freaking win. That was a freaking win. Anyway.
And now I'm a CEO and I admitted it finally.
Technical CEO. Good job, Erica. Erica just graduated. Okay, so first of all, Ray apparently hasn't had her first role in cyber yet. Apparently she is excellent at malware research, and I'm jealous because I wish I could do malware research all day, but apparently is hireable. So if you are interested in her skills, please do reach out to her on her platforms, which we will link in the notes after. But additionally, so I just wanted to ask, because you have one of the most varied and interesting stories that I've heard, and especially with your own personal journey, with transitioning at one point, detransitioning, retransitioning, and the struggles that you've kind of experienced in multiple industries, and I'm assuming cyber included. I would love for you to talk about your story and your background as much as you feel comfortable, and just kind of, tell people about how the experience was for you, or any challenges or wins that you experienced in multiple industries.
Sure. So, I mean, growing up in the late 80s, when I hit puberty, I think was the most difficult time for myself. Knowing that I was different and feeling different and feeling, hey, my body's doing changes that I was expecting it to be going in a different direction than it is. So it was just a really, really difficult time. And I was brought up in a really strict Roman Catholic family. And I went to Catholic schools. I went to an all boys school for high school. And I was just like regularly like beat up, bullied. I feel like that environment was the first time I tasted my own blood almost every other day, because I had bloody lips from getting, pushed around, beat up. That kind of evolved into very destructive behavior because I had so much internalized guilt and shame. I started having cutting behavior to, kind of really made the feeling of it was it's almost a self-punishment, but also purging your pain. And, that kind of set a really mentally and psychologically a really odd situation for me, in the sense that it almost set up a lifelong modality for suicide. So when I see currently kids that, are being repressed and are not being allowed to see therapists to discuss their gender feelings, who are being denied the puberty blockers, to give them some time to have counseling, to discuss things with a medical provider. It's devastating to me. I have a child who was born female, and she identifies as a boy, and she's been going to therapy for 2 years. And I don't think any parent goes into a situation of flippantly goes into this situation like, oh, hey, you know what, so-and-so's depressed, let's put her on meds, and the doctor says she wants to be a boy, so put her on hormones. No, it just doesn't happen like that. That's almost that's an assumption, and it's propagated by ridiculous stories and shock stories that you see on the news. It's very over the past 3 years since I started transitioning, it's gone from like a a situation of, hey, this is if there's any time to do this, it's now. And then all of a sudden things changed. It's like people are getting kicked out of the military. People are, I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then the multiples of ridiculous laws. It's like, right now, for me to go, can I go to Florida? What bathroom can I use? It's
oh
like,
my gosh. There's a festival right now, Girls in Wonderland, and I wanted to go, but I'm like, it's in Orlando. Like, I don't want to go to Orlando. Like, I'm afraid.
No.
So
it's really, and it's, unfortunately, I feel that part of my internalized transphobia is a result of societal and religious beliefs that were forced upon me. And that really sets up a great situation when you're just shameful and feeling guilty about who you are. It sets up a situation where, I can't even, I've worked with guns since I was 21 years old. I've owned guns. I would never even consider, the speed and lethality. That's my cat walking on my keyboard.
Hi, InfoSec Kitty. We constantly at work, we have InfoSec cats like Zoom bomb my coworkers all the time because they want to be on the keyboard. So they have to set up fake keyboards that their cats do that over there and don't Zoom bomb the meeting.
So
Good times.
I don't know what is. Oh my God! I've got Jim videos playing on my background. I'm sorry.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I know you're, and not to interrupt your story, but Kitty kind of interrupted us. I'm really interested to hear, and you might not know, do you think that because you're transitioning and you're a female, that the roles in cyber are being denied because of that? Or do you think you're having any problems with that? Because I'm trying to understand what people assume. Like when you're trying to apply for jobs, does that ever come up? Not that they ask, and this is just so I'm trying to get educated here. So bear with me.
Yeah.
How I'm trying to ask this question. Do you think that you getting into any of these specific cyber roles that you want to get into, or getting your first cyber role, do you think that people make assumptions and their own biases stop you from that?
I think, honestly, I think that my there we go. I was trying to find what window was open. My brain is 50 tabs open.
Well, and I'll tell you why I'm asking, because what I've noticed from being laid off in the last 3 years, 3 times on the applications, a lot of them ask if you are transgender, or if you identify as.
Can they ask that? They can't ask that, can they?
It's on all the applications, Meryl. That
isn't that voluntary demographic information
yes,
at the back?
voluntary.
Okay, I see voluntary. Okay.
But I'm wondering, Ray, do you put that on your applications? Because I did a little test. Okay, I'm going to tell you what I did. Because I'm doing research as a CEO. I was applying for jobs, and I applied for jobs as a female. I applied for jobs as that that I'm non-binary, or that I identify something other, or that I'm bisexual. I never got any calls on any of the ones I put where I was non-binary, bisexual, and got totally rammed on where I say I'm a female. So that's why I'm asking if you think that this is research. It's not anything that anybody else is doing. It's just my own research that I'm doing. And I'm wondering if you notice, if you've tried to say if you were a female versus a man, did you get a call back or did you not get a call back? If you don't know, that's okay. I'm just trying to figure this out, because there's obviously a huge gap in the industry.
No, I mean, it's interesting, and I've often thought that, because I do get those that pop up and show that, and one of my reasons I refuse to change my name.
Okay.
I refuse to. It's like 1% of people in 1944 named their girl Ray, but I'm like, whatever. I don't care. You know, so
It could be either or. I think.
I was named after my dad, and I was like, I'm not changing my name just to suit some societal construct, you know. So I'm just keeping my name. So that in itself is like, you know, I check off that I'm female, and then when I get to those questions, unfortunately, I do those questions because I'm considered 80% disabled as a veteran.
Right.
So, especially federal jobs and federal job considerations, stuff like that. I do put I do put that down. So, and I often sit there and wonder, hey, is this going to impact my hiring? You know, but I don't want to be I don't want to be, you know, I want to be transparent. I want to be out there. I think it's the best thing I can do at this point.
So let me flip the question on you a little bit. Would you say that you proactively do volunteer that information on that part of the applications because you want to be a part of orgs who are intentionally like diverse with it, or like you wouldn't hide that anyway?
I would say
yeah.
I mean, if you turned around and said, hey, you're getting hired at, you know, we want to offer you a job at some cybersecurity company who I really have wanted to work at, but we're not cool with, you know, all this diversity and all this stuff. Okay, well, I don't want to work for you. Right. So, I don't, you know, in a sense, if there's anything that a certain person that we all know has instilled in me, viewing me, but I'm also interviewing them. And
you should. You should.
Well, and Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they look for diversity within organizations. They look at the executives, they look at the management structures because they want companies that are diverse. So I'm trying to, you know, there's companies that say they're diverse and they have a DE&I initiative and they make a chief diversity officer, but then you're not really doing anything just because you hired somebody as a diversity officer and you have you coined the term DE&I or DE&I. You're actually not doing anything about it. You're just doing it for show. You know what I mean? To shut people up. You're not actually putting the diversity and accepting it within the organization because you still have all middle-aged white men. You don't have a lot of women. You definitely don't have the LGBTQIA community within your org. So I'm just sorry. The acronyms. I'm stuttering today. Sorry, but because I'm.
There's actually just like LGBTQ.
And as somebody who's starting a company and a CEO, and I'm all about diversity. I'm wondering, like, you know, what someone like you goes through and what the problem is and why. Like, I know everybody they say things just to say it and they jump on the bandwagon. But this isn't going away. This isn't like a fad. This is like we were talking before the episode. This is 2023. Who cares if you're gay, straight, cis, trans? But it is a problem. Like, I know. I don't care.
And like, I was railing about that so hard. Like, I know, like, Ray obviously started your career at a different time when like mentalities were very different. And that's not an excuse for them, by the way, but it's just how it was. Like mentalities and cultures and mindsets were different. Like, you know, Ray joined the military during the don't ask, don't tell policy, which was literally our unofficial way of saying, we'll let gays into the military, but if we figure it out, we have to kick you out. And you know, now that's not a thing. Now it's like, there's entire units for that, and like it's a total like proactive thing, and like there are people who are proud to be out in the military, which is crazy, I'm sure, for people like Ray. It's normal for me as a millennial. Like I'm used to that. Like I see that all the time. Like I see, you know, different lifestyle couples on TV all the time. It's actually one of the things that made me feel comfortable with coming out eventually. So but what I think is that I am astounded that it is 2023 and we are still having these diversity problems, because even in 2021, the last ISC2 demographic, that report that was published, you know, 24% female, 16% Black, 9% Hispanic, Latina, and our other research shows less than 2% LGBTQIA. That's all of them, less than 2%. And it is crazy to me, because this, like, we've seen a mentality shift towards more acceptance and people purporting for diversity, which is great. I love that. But lead us right into our next segment, Erica. I was going to ask, why do you guys think DE&I initiatives continue to fail? Like, if everyone's out there talking about diversity and supporting it and all these things, why is it failing so bad in orgs? Why don't we see it in company culture better? And what can they do better about it?
I'm going to answer briefly, and then I'll let Ray answer, because it is not being pushed down from the executive level down. Like, they're saying that, they know they have to be diverse, because if they're not going to have future employees. And it is profitable for them to be diverse. So it does, I think, boil down to profit, which, as you know, profit doesn't change culture. And the problem is the culture that's currently in cyber and many industries, but I'm just going to speak on cyber, is we still have toxic men. And I know there's a lot of men that are accept this, and they have kids and they understand, and things are changing. But if it's not being pushed down from our VCs down to our executives of companies, down to the management levels, HR might say, yeah, we have a diversity initiative, but you still have managers that are just interviewing females because they have to check a box. And I just don't think that companies know how to figure this out, and they don't have the time. I think it boils down to, it's not that they don't really care, because they're going to care when they don't have employees to hire. But I think that it's just, they don't have the bandwidth to actually implement, a DE&I or a diversity or change. I've been told in the past, and I've said this on many episodes, I was told that I was interviewed as a candidate just because I'm a woman. He was like, I have to interview a female. He didn't hire me. He had no intention on hiring me. He wasted my time. But I was like, you know what? I appreciate that. And he's like, yeah, it's just something we have to do. But it's even like the frontline hiring managers, they're not sold on it. So it has to be a huge culture shift, and it's going to take a lot. Instead of just saying we're diverse and we're working on it. They don't have enough data since they've started a diversity or a DE&I committee to show what they've actually done for it to change it.
Ray, your thoughts.
Go ahead, Ray.
My feeling is that there has long been an extension of homophobia and transphobia, almost historically, since I know that privately I had spoken to you about one of the most humiliating events in my life was in 1989. My dad was a state trooper. I wanted to be a Connecticut state trooper. I had passed all the physical qualifications for it. I had scored outstanding on their written exam, and I was in contention for the academy. And I had, I would say the odds were there. I was told off record that there were 4 positions and 12 candidates left. And I went for my polygraph exam, and at the time the polygraph exam was basically a booklet, and it would ask you like all these questions, and then you would write in the booklet, and then they put you on the polygraph machine, and they would say, have you withheld any information or been untruthful with anything basically that you put in the book regarding your sexual preferences, your, whatever. So it kind of covered everything in the book. And I'm like, I have a horrible, guilty conscience to begin with anything. So it's like, I would never be able, there's people like, oh yeah, put a thumbtack in your shoe, and when you answer a question, touch it with your toe and it'll set their thing off weird. And I'm like, that's crazy. No, forget it. But I took the exam, and they asked like everything. Do you feel that you want to be a woman or the opposite sex? Do you feel that have you ever advertised to meet someone of the same sex? Have you ever answered a personal ad? It was, and basically knowing now what they're looking at, I mean, at the time, it was like, it was a character judgment that they were making on you. And it was based on your sexual activity, your gender orientation, everything. And
Wow.
I mean, yeah, you could, they asked other things, have you ever bounced checks? Have you ever committed a crime? Whatever. It's
I mean,
like,
that I understand. They asked, so I
Yeah,
used to have
yeah.
a TS clearance. I didn't have a TSSCI, so I didn't need a poly or anything, but I used to have a top secret clearance. And they were asking me that stuff because, if you have bad credit, if you're in
Right.
debt, you're
Right.
open to bribes, things like that. I understand that. That I
Yeah.
understand.
But at the time I was in the military, being the things that flag your security clearance, being in the middle of a divorce, a contentious divorce, all those things that come into the national security space become possibilities for extortion and security risks. And I think that a lot of the cyber culture, especially now, dealing with the federal space, DoD compliance regulations and staff, your third party staff security clearance requirements are all like bring some of that back, because you're somehow, to certain members at the top, still considered part of the group that's a security risk. Like if I'm open and with certain people and they're like, oh yeah, you're bisexual, and then they go and someone finds out and says, hey, oh, I'm going to research them on LinkedIn. Oh, this says they're married. I wonder if their spouse knows that. It's ways that people can blackmail you or extort you. And that's why
it's weaponizing anything, right? But that brings it full circle. That brings it full circle, because if we all had a more open and adopting mindset, then you wouldn't have to fear, am I hiding this information because I'm afraid someone could blackmail me with it, like blackmail me into giving away work secrets because I'm afraid they're going to tell everybody and I'm going to lose my job and lose my family. And like, I mean, I assume most people who are close to you would know anyway, but like, it's the thing where like it comes full circle. If we had a more inclusive mindset and culture as a country, as a literal people, as citizens, then we wouldn't need to ask these things because it wouldn't be a factor. It's like, fine, go ahead and tell everybody. I don't care. My parents know. They were at my anniversary party. Who cares? Like,
that's why I'm totally open about it. I'm totally open about everything. And it's like, the further you push people into the shadows and push them further back into the closet, the more of a risk they become, in my mind. And I agree. Exactly what you just said. So it's really, really counterintuitive to even consider that, but that's where it is. And like Erica said, it's, a lot of we're waiting for some of the homophobic, transphobic, racist, people at the top to come to this realization or get the heck out of where they're at making these decisions.
They're the problem.
But the more we start going back to this, the worse it gets.
And they're thought leaders, right? They're role models. Like, they are like the example they are setting is what tells other people it's okay for me to be open with my bigotry and open with my bias and open with my hate for you. Like, I can't count the number of times me and my girlfriend have been somewhere and someone feels the need to come up to us and tell us how we just haven't met the right man yet and and I'm like, oh yeah, like, and I'm like, I would never walk up to a straight couple and be like, how have you not tried this yet? Like, that's not. And so it's one of those things where it's like, it's just dividing us more. And it's like, if it doesn't affect you literally at all, do you put my shoes on? Do you pay my bills? Do you work my job? No. Then why does my decision affect you at all? So the fact that these leaders and these political leaders and these other people and these moguls in their industries say it's okay to think this and be like this and talk like this to people, they are the problem. They are.
Yes, our government really needs to just stop saying they're accepting and just do something about it. Because I'm not saying there's not people in the government that are not accepting of trans and gays and all of that, but what they need to do is they actually need to stop acting like they care. And I'm not saying that they should get involved in private industry, but don't say you're for trans rights just because you want votes. And our government is a big a part of the problem as well. I hate both sides. So I'm not going to pick it.
I mean, we don't want to go down the political rabbit hole too much, but I think some of the laws that Florida and Texas get away with, honestly, are unconstitutional. And I know that we have federal legislature and we have state legislature at their own levels, but I think it needs to go before the Supreme Court, who would say that's unconstitutional. The pursuit of happiness is a constitutional right that is protected to us, to citizens who literally came to this country because they were not allowed to be themselves where they came from. What are you doing to us now? You are doing the same thing.
But like a lot of tech companies have moved to Texas, and how is that helping the LGBTQIA?
Oh, it's not. If you have your headquarters in Texas, I know you're not diversity, equity, and inclusion.
But that's what and like Florida too. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not going down the political thing, but you're excluding yourself from a whole class. Not a class, a whole group of people that would be amazing employees, but they're trans. And you can't hire them because of your bigotry. You know what I mean? Like somebody said in the comments, we need to take the sex, like the race and sex boxes off the application process and interview process. Because why does it matter? I can't tell you how many times I'm being interviewed and people start asking me about my family life and if I have kids. And, I've been a single mom forever. Like I'm in a relationship, but, I'm not with my child's father. Why do you ask me if I'm going to be able to travel because I'm a single parent? And is that going to be a
They basically want to know, are you going to work this job like you have no family to raise? Or are you going to be picking up kids when they're sick and all this stuff? And it's like, well, my husband's not going to do it if I had one. So obviously, like, do you expect do you do it or does your wife do it? Yeah, exactly.
They always ask if I'm married. Why does that matter?
It does not.
It doesn't. I had the same thing with Chans.
I had someone message me on LinkedIn literally yesterday who is a chief level at a U.S. Government agency and say, because I put you can ask me about my rainbow post up, and they were like, I thought about that for a minute. And I was like, it took me 60 whole seconds to realize that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me, like who you date and what you do and what your orientation is. It doesn't matter to me. It would never come up in me asking you about cyber things or interacting with you on LinkedIn or about IT things. He was like, so I was going to ask you about it. And then I realized it's not my business and it doesn't matter. And I was like, no harm, no foul, but like, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
At least he was honest, but like, you shouldn't have to put posts like that. But unfortunately you do, because people are, what they are. So.
I did appreciate the perspective so much. I was like, that was such a great realization that you came to all on your own. And you know what? You are right. But I did put it out there because I don't mind talking about it. Okay, so let's bring it, because we are coming up on time very, very quickly. Let's bring it up on what you guys think organizations could do better to make sure their DE&I initiatives succeed and they are being inclusive. You say they want to be. If they're not, they have some work to do. But if they say they want to be and those initiatives aren't getting off the ground, what could orgs do better? And then we'll do final takeaways.
Ray, you go first.
I think that organizations, especially in the states that they're in and they operate in, again, not to get political, but you stated, like Texas, Florida, states like that. None of this is happening in a vacuum. And I'm sure these companies are like, hey, well, what do we do if we've got this employee now? We're going to have to make a separate bathroom, do this, do that, whatever. But one of my considerations is when I'm applying for jobs, I'm like, oh, this company's out of Texas. Have they passed any? I have to start looking at legislation to see if one of those states has passed legislation forbidding insurance companies from covering affirming gender care for myself or my children. And whether that comes, and they've almost blanket statemented these laws where it covers mental health therapy, just psychotherapy, psychiatric, medical therapy, to the point where, I'm insulated to a certain extent. I'm in a blue state. And but things can change so quickly that my insurance covers my estrogen, but I see things on the news where it's like, oh, this state's not going to allow insurance companies to cover hormone therapy for adults, not only for children. And this stuff, I'm going to be demonstrative here. I stockpile it, okay? Some people stockpile guns. I stockpile this because affirming gender care and these medications made me make the choice between taking my own life or transitioning. Those were my two options. That was it. So when I look at employers, I shouldn't have to go through that. DEI initiatives should be looking at that and saying, hey, you know, what about someone has to swim upstream on this. Mm-hmm. That's what has to happen. Someone has to swim upstream and say, hey, you know what? We're going to be the company in Texas or the company in Florida that says, F this, we are covering our employees who are transgender. We are covering their medical benefits. We are covering all of these things. They can make the decisions. They go to the insurance companies and they say, hey, we want these coverages. Just like my wife works for a Catholic hospital, and they were adamant that they do not cover birth control. They do not cover birth control, and they do not cover in vitro fertilization, and especially for same-sex couples.
Oh, especially now.
And they were able to get away with it. The only reason I am on her insurance, the only reason they cover me is because Connecticut, the state of Connecticut, mandated that the insurance companies cover affirming gender care and hormone therapy. And they went against these big hospitals that were part of the hospital system, that the Catholic hospital system. Most of the
good for you, Connecticut.
Yeah, good. Most of the hospitals in Connecticut were not for profit, and then a lot of them got bought out. And fortunately, Connecticut turned around and passed that legislation before they got bought out, because they got bought out by a company out of Texas.
That's good. Erica, what about you? You're a brand new CEO. What do you think orgs can do better?
They need to promote or hire younger individuals and either groom them to get into management roles or executive roles. I do believe that I'm not saying they have to fire people because they're a middle-aged white man, but I do think they need to start, I do think they need to start adding like millennials or Gen Zers, or promoting women and promoting, this is a problem with any industry. The younger generations need to start having career paths and career advancement within companies, because we bring a different perspective. I'm a millennial also. And I think that some of these executives need to retire. Just like, I think some of the government needs to retire, because I don't relate to Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi doesn't relate to me. I'm 41 and she's like 8 billion years old. But what do her and I have in common? What would she know about what my 17-year-old daughter's going through if she's confused about her sexuality? Mm-hmm. She doesn't know anything about it. So I think they need to force retire. And it is going to start happening because the boomers and the Gen Xers, whatever, they're leaving the workforce. But that has to happen before they can say they have DE&I initiatives, because promoting a Black woman and making her the chief diversity officer, that's amazing. But what are you allowing her not to do? What are you telling her she can't do as your diversity officer? I know somebody that was promoted as a diversity officer, African-American male. He's told no on a daily basis by his male counterparts. So they need to stop the show, cut the crap, and actually put people in those positions. And Ray, I do want to tell you, just so you know, medically, I don't get hormone replacement therapy covered under my insurance. Like if I have to take testosterone, progesterone, all these things to regulate my hormones in my early 40s, because that's when our bodies start going out of whack. Most of the time, I have to pay out of pocket for it, and I have to see a clinic that specifically does it. That's a doctor that has a hormone replacement, like LPN. So there's all of these things that also are a struggle for. Like I was born a woman and I identify as a woman, but I still can't get testosterone covered by my insurance because it's something that a man needs. And as like we were talking before, I had no testosterone levels. My estrogen was really high. So my hormones are out of whack. I'm paying out of pocket. And like my regular doctors don't even do it. There are some that give you like, testosterone in certain types of way, but it's not covered by insurance. Men can get TRT, testosterone replacement, but women cannot. So there's all of these struggles, with all of these moving pieces and parts. But I think it starts from the top, and they need to start getting some of these people out and promoting younger generation. And that's going to be a challenge. That's going to be a work in progress.
Yeah. When I renew my prescription, the pharmacy company is constantly questioning my doctor's prescription. And I had to go through endocrinologist, there's so much gatekeeping, and that's a result of the insurance companies being allowed to
do that,
still exist and be the intermediary. That's why you had people like here in Connecticut, Wendell Potter became a whistleblower against the insurance industry. He worked for Cigna and followed people around discrediting the pushes for national health care, because the insurance, where would they go? That's their bread and butter. Where would they go? They're the middleman, and they remain the middleman because both parties said, oh, well, hey, we'll come to this agreement. That's why they're still the middleman.
And I think companies also need to hire external boards, like panels.
Yeah.
So like they have their board of advisors, but those are still like the same people that are advising all the other companies that are all getting kickbacks. They do like what Victoria's Secret did. I don't agree that they fired all the angels and fired all the models, but they did bring on Megan Rapinoe and a bunch of other, people that have a better perspective as their advisory board, and what Victoria's Secret could do better to attract transgender or whoever they're trying to target. So I think a lot of that needs to happen as well. And I know we're way over time, but it's going to be a big change. Just like how I preach the sales process is broken, all of this is broken too.
Yeah, there's a lot of broken things. And unfortunately, no one thing is going to fix it. No one thing is going to be the answer, the cure-all. It's going to take a lot of people doing a collective effort, doing small little things that will start to add up to big changes. So you're not alone, no matter how small you think your change is. If you change one mind, then you did something positive for the world today. So unfortunately, we are just gonna have to move into final takeaways and then say our goodbyes, because we are way over time. This has been a fabulous episode. I've loved all these topics. I think it's so relevant to so many members of our industry that we want to include and that we want to see here, and especially as us millennials and Gen Zers do move up into higher echelons of management, we're going to see a lot more of that anyway. It's going to be the norm, not the abnormality. So that's great. So any last takeaways, any final thoughts you guys want to leave the audience with from anything we talked about today, whether it's DEI in cyber, how it looks, why it looks that way, how it can be better, things orgs can do, or diversity in cyber in general?
My final takeaway is that, I plan to make a change. I'm only going to be one person, but my organization is going to be very strong, and we're going to make a difference, and we're going to be the squeaky wheel, and people might hate us, but you know what? It's 2023. The other thing I'll add is, Ray, thank you so much for sharing your story. I almost cried.
Yeah.
People need to hear more of this, because as a straight woman, I'm very open to things, and you and I talk a lot, and you're a huge supporter of us, but it was so powerful. And I think that needs to get across to our industry for people. I'm like tearing up, for people to understand like what the challenges are.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank you too for sharing your story with us. I know that we talk about, different aspects of it in private messaging and stuff, but it's one of those things where I am so sorry for a number of the struggles you've had to go through. Like I've had struggles, as a woman, as a millennial, because everyone hates us automatically, and now as a member of the LGBTQ community, but like not the struggles that some other people have gone through. And I just got to say, like, I'm so sorry that you had to encounter those mindsets, but that I'm so happy you rose above and that you are still here with us, because every single one of you matter. And we, the Queens, are happy that you are here with us in the world and that you might want to be in cyber with us. We are always here for you. My takeaway is that lack of diversity is hurting us in cyber. We see it everywhere. RSA's theme this year was Stronger Together. I saw in numerous keynotes last year how we all need diversity. The lack of diversity can have serious implications from a security perspective, because threats are constantly evolving and changing. And guess what? They're not saying, hey, you have the stupidest idea in the room. They're saying, screw it, let's try it, develop that exploit and let's launch it and see if it works. Like, they don't care who it comes from. They don't care who they go home to. They just want the job to get done. So we need more diversity of thought and perspective and experiences and approach if we're going to keep solving problems and keep innovating, because new fresh things is where innovation comes from. You can't innovate with what you've already got and like what you've had for years. So I think it's only hurting us. And I really hope that we as an industry start to do better.
I agree.
Your turn.
Oh, wow. It's hard to try to not cover things that you've already covered. But yeah, I think that cybersecurity is, you know, there's not having diversity and viewing things through a different lens hurts cybersecurity. Perspective is, you know, if you fill your company with people that have the same perspective and view things the same way, you're going to miss things. You're going to miss threats, you know, and it's not only the, you know, gender diversity and LGBTQ, but, you know, you go into neurodiversity and ADHD, and a lot of us have
ethnic
that
diversity.
And, you know, the quote unquote nerdy guy that hardly talks to anyone may be like, oh, well, you guys are, the 9 of you are stupid, and I see this as a threat. And it's like, whoa, okay. Let's take a look at that. You know, all the people that are decrying, you know, ChatGPT is going to take away people's jobs. And what Meryl just said with, you know, the cyber criminals, they're throwing crap against the wall to see what sticks. That's what they're going to be using ChatGPT for. And, you know, as the cybersecurity people are going to be using it for defensive measures. And, you know, when it comes down to it, it's not like the Terminator movies. These things are not independently autonomous. You know, everything is still programmed by people, and you know,
I think it's crazy that we're learning to be better humans from an AI that was programmed by a human.
Yeah, right.
People are going to ChatGPT to learn to be more empathetic leaders and learn to be better parents, and I'm like,
yeah.
Just pay attention to people and have emotional intelligence. So just putting that out there.
I mean, there's, you know, there's those aspects, but I guess my message to get across is that these laws are just, everything that's been going on is really taxing. It's been, I have to take periods where I don't look at the news. I don't look at the legislations. And then I get to where I'm in a good state of mind because I called the VA crisis line or texted them and said, hey, you know, this is bothering me. And I got to give a big shout out to the Veterans Administration. And they have been phenomenal with both my ADHD meds, depression, anxiety. They've been outstanding. I think they get a bad rap, you know, from a lot of people, but they here in Connecticut, at least, that the system is amazing. But there's a lot of people that, with everything going on and, you know, hunting for jobs, searching for jobs, applying to jobs, wondering if, you know, just wondering if am I not getting the jobs because of the person that I am? That's mentally, you know, my hacker name and my Discord is Medusa, because I say my hair is normally just like big snakes. And sometimes they're defensive snakes and they will attack people that attack me. Other times they can be internalized and they attack myself. So that said, I think that a lot of what's going on, people don't realize the impact that it has on the individual. And, you know, if you know anyone that's transgender, especially teenagers, youth that are in any of the states that are, you know, limiting their ability to talk to someone or even, you know, be referred to by the pronouns that they want to be referred to. You know, the Trevor Project and the Trans Lifeline is out there, which is specifically they're staffed by transgender individuals, and they have a policy where it's like they won't call, you know, the police and say, oh, you're suicidal, and, you know, basically dox you, dox you and SWAT you. But yeah, you know, and there's a lot of hate out there, so people got to be careful, because, you know, you've got, you know, organizations they're out there just to make our lives miserable, like Kiwi Farms.
Yeah.
So I'll probably get on their list now by saying that.
We're gonna have our list, because it's like an almost an hour long episode. They're like, what the hell, Queens? It's supposed to be half hour.
I know.
No, but this has been a great interview. Thank you so much, ladies, both of you, for all of your perspectives. Again, Ray, we are so happy to finally have you with us. We had so much fun. I was so looking forward to this. We just want to say, you know, once again, happy Pride to all the members of the community out there. Again, if you don't have your community in cyber, if you don't know where to find us, we do have cyber security, which is, you know, a little on the nose, but I was messing around and Bronwyn took it way too far, which is great. I love you, Bronwyn. So if you want to come hang out with us, that's a closed space for us. It's just for us. And we just want to say we love you no matter who you are. You're worthy. You matter. We're happy you're here. We would be even happier if you want to join us here. There are positive people out there in this world who do love and support you. We, the queens, are just 3 of them. So remember, you're a queen. Keep your crown and your confidence high. Reach out to us if you need anything. If you do need help, there are resources out there to support you. And next week, we're going to have Miss Stacey Champagne with Hackers and Heels on. So that's going to be fabulous. Can't wait for that one. So we, the queens, will see you next week. Thank you so much for sticking with us this extra long episode. But we love you. We will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.